At first glance, a lobster looks simple. Hard shell, big claws, lives on the seafloor, but almost nothing about this animal follows the rules. It grows by literally breaking out of its own body. Its blood is blue, and it may never truly age. By the end of this video, you'll realize lobsters are closer to alien machines than normal animals. Let's start with the most obvious feature, their armor. Lobsters are crustaceans, which means they wear their skeletons on the outside. This exoskeleton is like a personalized suit of medieval armor, protecting them from the harsh realities of the ocean floor, but unlike a knight's armor, this suit comes with built-in weaponry. The claws. You've probably noticed they have two different kinds. One is the crusher claw. It's thick, blunt, and incredibly powerful, designed to smash open the shells of clams, mussels, and other unfortunate prey. Think of it as a slow-moving hydraulic press. The other is the cutter, or pincer claw. It's faster, sharper, and more delicate, used for tearing flesh and manipulating food. It's the lobster's fork and knife. Now here's where it gets strange. Which claw becomes the crusher isn't decided by genetics. When a young lobster is developing, both claws are cutters. The one it uses more frequently, the one that gets more of a workout, is the one that develops into the massive crusher. It's like going to the gym and only working out one arm until it's twice the size of the other. Even weirder, if a lobster loses a claw, it can just grow a new one. Over several molts, a new limb will regenerate. Sometimes smaller or a little different at first, but fully functional. It's a living tank that can repair and upgrade its own weapons. But wearing your skeleton on the outside presents a massive problem. The shell is hard and rigid, which means it can't grow. So how does a tiny lobster become a giant one? It has to escape its own body. This process is called molting, and it's one of the most violent and dangerous things any animal can do. Here's how it works. First, the lobster reabsorbs some of the calcium from its old shell to conserve resources and create a soft new shell underneath. Then the old shell splits open right where the tail meets the main body. What follows is a brutal, exhausting struggle. The lobster has to pull its entire body, including every leg, antenna, and eye stalk, through that narrow opening. The claws are the hardest part. They are often wider than the gap they have to squeeze through. The lobster has to drain fluid from them, making them shrink just enough to be wrenched free. When it finally pulls itself out, it leaves behind a perfect hollow copy of itself, called an exuvia. It looks so much like a real lobster that people often mistake it for a dead one. The newly molted lobster is a mess. Its body is soft, floppy, and jelly-like. For the next few hours, it's incredibly vulnerable. It can't walk properly. Its claws are useless. It's an easy meal for any predator or even another hungry lobster. To harden its new, larger shell, it has to absorb water, puffing itself up to its new size before the shell calcifies. This whole ordeal uses an enormous amount of energy and carries a huge risk of death. The lobster can get stuck, tear a limb off, or just exhaust itself to death. Yet this life-threatening process is the only way it can grow. As you might imagine, molting gets deadlier with age. The bigger a lobster gets, the more energy it takes to shed its massive shell. The shell becomes thicker, the muscles required for the escape need to be stronger, and the sheer physics of pulling a giant body through a small hole become more and more challenging. A very old, very large lobster might simply not have the energy to complete the molt, and it will die trapped inside its own armor. And this is where the idea of immortal lobsters begins. You've probably seen the headlines, "Lobsters are biologically immortal." Is it true? The answer is complicated. Most animals, including us, experience senescence. That's the scientific term for aging. Our cells divide, and with each division, the protective caps on our chromosomes, called telomeres, get a little shorter. When they get too short, the cells stop dividing and start to die. It's a built-in biological clock. Lobsters laugh at that clock. They produce an incredible amount of an enzyme called telomerase. This enzyme rebuilds the telomeres, essentially repairing their DNA after each cell division. This means their cells don't have the same built-in expiration date that ours do. As a result, lobsters don't show the typical signs of aging. An old lobster isn't necessarily weaker or less fertile than a young one. In fact, older, larger females are often the most fertile. They just keep getting bigger, stronger, and more reproductive. So, are they immortal? No, they can't live forever. As we saw, the process of molting eventually becomes too difficult and kills them. They also die from diseases, get eaten by predators, or are caught by fishermen. They aren't immortal, but they are biologically non-aging in a way that is completely alien to us. They don't die of old age. They die from the dangers of getting old. It's a subtle but profound difference. As if all that wasn't weird enough, let's talk about their blood. If you were to cut a lobster, you wouldn't see red. You'd see a clear, slightly grayish fluid that when exposed to oxygen turns a brilliant blue. That's because their blood isn't iron-based like ours. Human blood uses hemoglobin, which contains iron, to carry oxygen. Lobster blood uses hemocyanin, which contains copper. When copper binds with oxygen, it turns blue. This copper-based system is actually more efficient at transporting oxygen in the cold, low oxygen environments of the deep ocean. But it's not just the color that's different, it's the entire circulatory system. We have a closed system where our blood is neatly contained in arteries and veins. Lobsters have an open circulatory system. Their heart pumps the blue blood, not into tiny capillaries, but directly into a body cavity called the hemocoel. Their organs are literally just bathing and soaking in this oxygen-rich fluid. Imagine your lungs, stomach, and brain all just floating around in a pool of blood inside your body. It's a fundamentally different design for life, and this strange circulation feeds a nervous system that might be even weirder. So far, we've seen a creature that lives in custom armor it has to violently escape just to grow. It has self-upgrading weapons and the ability to regenerate lost limbs. It defies the normal process of aging thanks to special DNA repairing enzymes, and it circulates blue, copper-based blood through an open, soaking system. The lobster's body is only half the story. Its mind, communication, and behavior are where things get truly disturbing. We've already covered their endless growth, their strange blue blood, and their potential immortality. But that's just the beginning. The weirdness goes all the way down. Let's start with their brains, or rather, their lack of one. A lobster doesn't have a central brain like we do. Instead, its nervous system is decentralized, a chain of nerve clusters called ganglia running down its body. Each ganglion controls a different segment. This means its body parts can act semi-independently. A claw can sense a threat and react before the head even registers it. Imagine your hand fighting a battle all on its own. It's like a creature piloted by a committee, where the claws, legs, and tail all have a say in what happens next. Walking, fighting, feeding, it's all coordinated without a single command center. It's less like an animal and more like a biological machine. This decentralized system leads to a huge controversial question. Do lobsters feel pain? For decades, scientists have debated this. On one hand, they absolutely react to injury. They'll limp, they'll favor a damaged limb, and they learn to avoid things that have harmed them before. They even show measurable stress responses. But on the other hand, without a brain structured like ours, their experience of pain is likely something we can't comprehend. It's not the emotional, conscious suffering a mammal would feel. So, the best conclusion we have is that they are not mindless, unfeeling robots, but they also don't experience pain like we do. They exist in a strange neurological space somewhere in between, a state of awareness that is profoundly alien to us. Now let's talk about dinner time. A lobster's mouth isn't just a mouth. It's a terrifying array of multiple, complex appendages called mouthparts that work together to shred food before it even goes inside. But the real horror show starts after they swallow. Lobsters have teeth in their stomachs. I'll say that again. They chew their food from the inside. Hard, bony structures called the gastric mill grind everything down. As scavengers and predators, they'll eat almost anything. Fish, mollusks, worms, even other crustaceans. Their entire digestive system is built backwards, reinforcing the theme that with lobsters, even the most basic biological rules are made to be broken. And if you think that's strange, wait until you hear how they talk to each other. Lobsters communicate by peeing in each other's faces. No, I'm not kidding. They have urine release nozzles right under their eyes. This urine isn't just waste, it's loaded with chemical messages called pheromones. By spraying each other, they can identify individuals, figure out who's dominant, and decide who's a potential mate. This is lobster chemical warfare, and it's how their entire social world operates. When two lobsters face off, they're not just sizing each other up visually, they're having a complex chemical conversation, exchanging information through carefully aimed streams of pee. It's their version of a social media profile, a business card, and a pickup line, all rolled into one. This brings us to lobster combat. These fights aren't just random brawls, they are highly ritualized contests that determine their social hierarchy. It starts with antenna whipping, a sort of chemical-laced trash talk. Then they'll display their claws, showing off their weapons. If neither backs down, it escalates to a pushing and wrestling match. The winner gets the best shelter, the first pick of food, and access to mates. The loser learns its place and retreats, often remembering the winner and avoiding them in the future. It's a surprisingly complex and structured social system, all governed by chemical cues and displays of strength, proving there's a lot more going on down there than just mindless aggression. But perhaps the most alien thing about a lobster is how it begins its life. When a lobster first hatches, it looks nothing like the armored creature we know. It's a tiny, transparent, free-floating larva that looks more like a microscopic space alien. It drifts in the ocean currents, a vulnerable speck of life with spidery legs and huge eyes. It bears zero resemblance to its parents. After weeks of floating and molting through several larval stages, it undergoes a radical metamorphosis. It sinks to the seafloor and transforms into a miniature, armored version of an adult. It's as if one animal lives multiple lives in completely different bodies, from a delicate, floating alien to a tough, seafloor crawling dinosaur. So let's bring it all together. They grow forever and never age. Their blood is blue and copper-based. Their nervous system is a decentralized network of mini-brains. They communicate by spraying chemical-laced urine. They chew with teeth inside their stomachs. And they start life as something that looks like it's from another planet. Nothing about a lobster is normal, but this is the key. They succeed because they break our biological expectations at every turn. They aren't primitive relics. They are perfectly, bizarrely, and wonderfully adapted to their world, just in ways we never could have expected. They are living proof that on this planet, there's more than one way to be a master of survival. Thanks for watching.